have what you wanted. Yeah. So now she had to go back home and get dressed to go to Target.
Outstanding. Ah, hey, Two Boots. Lori said she's in her pajama bottoms.
Of course you are.
Are those the brogies with you?
Yeah, we got the brogies, we got my dad, we got butts and seats. Yeah.
Morning, Lori.
Good morning.
Morning,
My
Zoe.
butt is in the seat virtually.
Yes. All right. Well, let's jump in, everybody. Welcome to this Simple Supplement Strategies Saturday workshop. Can't tell, I enjoy alliteration. The goal of this workshop is to talk about dialing down your midsection through things that you can do day in, day out that don't just dial down your midsection, but actually help you achieve a greater level of health. So, there are many different reasons clients have told me they want to make their midsection smaller. It's summer, or my wedding is coming up, or I'm in a wedding, I'm dating again. I know that it means something is going on in my body. I think that's the most important one for me as a clinician. When somebody says, look, I'm gaining weight in my midsection, I know it means something is going on in my body. Our midsection is home to many organs, glands, and different types of tissue. In this workshop, we're going to review simple supplement strategies that I've seen work to nourish up and dial down midsections. There's three main areas that we're going to focus on today. We're going to talk about the thyroid, the lungs, and the liver. As questions come up, ask them. First, we got to talk about how does fat get burned off? Fat cells never get destroyed, but they can get smaller. This is why for many years the general public was told to stay lean. Once a fat cell is created, you take it to the grave. And we see this in our modern world with severe obese people. We see that they lose a lot of weight, but they never really get totally toned or totally dialed down, because even though their fat cells go from this to this, the fat cell is still there, taking up some amount of space.
There's a lot of them.
Which is a problem also, because there's quite a bit of quantity. Yeah. So, when we're talking about losing fat, we're going to keep in mind that once we make a cell, we keep a cell. Okay? But there's lots of stuff we can do to help the body do this. Because how much less space does this take up compared to that? Quite a bit. The thyroid gland is the key that unlocks the fuel inside a fat cell. A healthy thyroid will open up a fat cell, allowing what's inside it to be used for fuel or removed from the body. So what's important is we might have nutrients inside a fat cell like vitamin A or calcium that's being stored inside of there. And when we start to shrink this fat cell, we have to get these things out of it. If we don't get those things out of it, if we aren't equipped to get those things out of it, the fat cell will stay the same size. So part of what hangs people up when they're talking about losing fat is their body is not prepared to get rid of what's in the fat cell aside from fat. We're going to talk about how to do that today.
We need those things.
Those are really good for you.
So our body gets a mixed message.
Yes. And we're going to talk about toxins inside of cells also in a little bit and how that further mixes up the message. Yeah. All right, so if we're going to nourish our thyroid, which just to be clear, thyroid is above your lungs, it's in your neck, kind of looks like a butterfly. Some people have to have thyroid surgery. This is pretty crazy that in our modern world, with modern techniques, if you have a problem with just a quarter of your thyroid, they can actually remove just a quarter of your thyroid and leave the other 3/4 functioning. For example, if you had cancer, they can determine if it's isolated to just one part of the thyroid and just remove one part of it. Sometimes it's the full half of the thyroid gets removed, but that's better than the whole thing getting removed. First way to nourish up the thyroid is organically bound minerals. This product. This product is a whole food source of potassium and iodine, 2 minerals required by the thyroid for optimal function. Organically bound minerals. Yeah. This product is frequently used for a diverse list of reasons, including the thyroid. This time of year, I put a lot of clients on this product because it's electrolytes. And when they're doing yard work, when they're outside being active and they're sweating more, they need more electrolytes.
Not just pink salt.
Not just pink salt. I would wash down the organically bound minerals with water that I put pink salt in. So on the handout here, it says DDYM. That means dial down your midsection. You put gas in your car so that it'll run. Put organically bound minerals in your thyroid so it will run. Next supplement to talk about here for thyroid is Thytrophin PMG. This one supports anti-inflammatory action and damaged tissue rebuilding in the thyroid gland. This product is most commonly used to help with fat loss, energy levels, and heart arrhythmia. This is one that a lot of people don't know. Let's go with green. The thyroid, sorry, lungs are green. I don't want to confuse that. So your heart's sitting right about here. The thyroid actually controls the tempo of the heart. So not the blood pressure, not its ability to go up and down, but the tempo of it. When it needs to go up, the thyroid establishes what the tempo should be when it goes up. When it comes down, the thyroid establishes the tempo when it comes down. So a lot of clients who I've worked with over the years who have heart arrhythmias are really frustrated because when they go to their doctor, every marker of heart health is good for them except they have arrhythmias. And then they don't know what to do about it. And I'm like, well, we got to nourish up your thyroid because that's actually what controls that rhythm in the heart.
So you've got like a slow pulse rate.
Yeah.
Like 40.
Yeah.
Is that your norm and the thyroid just keeps it at norm?
So long as we aren't talking about any pharmaceutical intervention going on, because there are some drugs that keep the heart rate down.
Right.
Okay, we're not talking about that.
No.
But if a person has a heart rate that's in the 40s and they're not an Olympic athlete, then I'm going to say that thyroid could use a boost. Because then we'd want to see that tempo just a little bit quicker for optimal health. Okay. Dial down your midsection. Keeping the thyroid deflamed or not inflamed helps open up the fat cells. Next one I want to talk about is one, we don't get to use this one very much, do we, Lori? Metabolic activator? Oh. This combination formula provides nutrients that promote thyroid efficiency. It is most commonly used by people who have limited time or ability for exercise.
Exercise in a bottle.
Exercise in a bottle. I wish it was that simple. So there are many weight loss products. I'll take 10. Can I get a pallet? There are many quote-unquote weight loss products out there in the world, but they're just glorified stimulants. This product is actually nutrients, not stimulants, for fat loss. That's a really important difference. The thyroid doesn't love caffeine. It doesn't love stimulants. Thyroids are kind of finicky in general, so it's way more effective, especially long-term, to nourish them instead of just force them to do more work with a stimulant.
So if you take the stimulant, then you need the organic bound mineral to regulate your heart rate.
Very good. If you're used to taking stimulants, we should still look at these products because your heart rate's going to be all funky because all the stimulants. Yeah. All right, this one is called Thyroid Complex. It's by MediHerb. This herbal formula contains ingredients that have been used medicinally for millennia, for thousands and thousands of years. It's also a food source of iodine and stress tolerance nutrients. You've probably heard of the herb ashwagandha before. It's really popular right now. It's all about anti-stress. It is one of the ingredients inside of this product. It's most commonly used when stress around the topic of fat loss is part of the case. So when I'm working with clients, we're talking about losing body fat, and they talk about how they've tried before and it hasn't worked, or it worked but only short term, or the thought of all the things they'll have to do to achieve fat loss is stressing them out. My first thought as a clinician is, are they going to test for thyroid complex? Because that's my favorite thing to help with. I'm stressed out about fat loss. Does that make sense? I can help the thyroid and
Like
help
they're
the
not
stress.
literally stressed out, it's the fat loss that's causing them to be stressed out?
Both. Like either or both.
Because there's too much in the rest of their body, the organs?
Yeah, the thyroid complex is going to help the thyroid work. And separate from that, if they're stressed out, it's going to help them deal with the stress.
So are you talking stress to the organs because of fat loss, or stress mentally
Both.
because you're toxic?
Yeah, both. Yeah.
So if body image is tied into self-worth, then there's a lot of stress involved.
Usually, yeah.
Okay, so that would be the stress that you could reduce.
Yeah, to help the body tolerate it better.
Get a good counselor to help you work on it.
Sure, that too. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm not opposed to that.
So there's no effect, like you're shrinking that cell.
Yeah.
You're getting the ASA and the calcium, like you said.
Yeah.
That's not over stimulating other organs by having too much of that other places?
It might, when we get to liver, we're going to talk about that. Excellent. Full marks so far, Kathy. All right, questions on the thyroid? See, Boots, you're good? Cool. Let's move on. All right, how does fat leave our body? Fat cells shrink when what is inside of them moves outside of them. The next step is to get that material out of the body, and this is where the lungs come in. Lungs are the pathway where more than 80% of fat loss takes place. Let that sink in. Fat removal does not happen from sweating or pooping or urinating. The fat gets removed from our body by the lungs more than any other pathway. This book is an incredible source of info on that. It's called Breath by James Nestor. It's an excellent resource for a lot of things, including talking about how our body actually gets rid of the part of cells that are actually fat. So the actual fat, for it to get out, leaves our body. 80% of it leaves our body via the breath. So we're going to talk about lung nourishment, because if you want fat to get out of the cells, 80% of that work's going to happen here at our lungs. So the first nourishment for lungs is called Amphiplex, a combination formula that supports lung function, adrenal function, and mucous membranes, like your sinuses and your eyes and your bladder. This product is most commonly used to help with coughs, colds, and former smokers. I wrote former smokers in the handout because, believe it or not, very few smokers come to a nutritionist. How does it help your midsection? Helps with energy and with lung performance. This product is effective, but it's also really gentle. So a lot of people who have never taken lung nourishment before, or people who are new to not smoking or vaping, that's a really good introduction to lung nourishment because it's effective, but it's gentle. The next one is called pneumotrophin, PMG. This one, just like the thyroid PMG, supports anti-inflammatory action and damaged tissue rebuilding of the lungs. This product is most commonly used to help with allergies and former smokers. So this time of year, with allergies kicking up, we keep much more pneumotrophin in stock than we do at other times of year because of how good it is at helping with allergies. But keeping the lungs from being inflamed is a really effective way to help them remove fat. So sometimes in a fat loss program, the client is on pneumotrophin not because they have a lung problem, but because I want to stay a step in front of any potential lung problem to keep that fat leaving their body. All right, let's flip the page. Ooh, Resco. I got a sweet spot in my heart for this. This last winter, our household dealt with quite a few respiratory issues, and Resco came through for my wife Amy in a big way to help her stay well while dealing with all that stuff. This herbal formula for lungs supports the mechanisms that clean lungs and airways. This product is most commonly used for chronic lung and airway infections. And how it helps is keeping lungs clean helps them remove fat. So some people work in a place where the air quality is poor. because of the materials that they're working with. There's toxic things, there's car exhaust. They are in a machine shop, so there's oil burning off all the time and metal particulate in the air. This is really good for helping their lungs clean themselves and get rid of that junk that we don't want sitting in there, even if it's old.
Good part of the program for COVID.
It's tricky, so I like that question. Would it be part of the program for COVID? Some of the things in here are a little bit too stimulating to the immune system when a viral infection is being aggressive. So once,
The immune system will step up.
I don't want to burden it though. Yeah, it's not stepping up, it's adding things to its to-do list. So after COVID, absolutely. Not during it. Yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily be on more than one of these at a time.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that too in a little bit. It's rare that people need more than one or two from each one of these.
Some of them you prefer to wait till after you've gotten whatever out of you, then to rebuild it. Like your pneumotrophin would be more after the rest coat.
Not necessarily. The
Would
pneumotrophin,
you do it at the same time?
because the pneumotrophin will help with inflammation,
Right.
which would allow the resco to clean deeper. Yeah, that's the way that I would.
You don't want it to do it too fast.
Yeah, that was more for like if someone has a viral infection active in their lungs, that's when I'm like, do we need resco? Yeah. Bronch effect is next. Another herbal formula that supports lung function. Maintaining healthy lung function and dealing with acute lung issues is where this product is most commonly used. Fat loss slows during airway infections, and this helps deal with airway infections. So when I have clients over the years who have come in for fat loss, and during their program they say, oh, I got this upper respiratory bug going on all of a sudden. I'm checking bronch effect right away to make sure that we don't slow the fat loss just because they got a head cold or a respiratory thing going on. It's not something people stay on long term. It's just something I really like people to know. If you're doing a fat loss program, you get ill, you're likely going to slow your fat loss. There's a way that we can fight back against that.
So if somebody comes in here and they want to come in here for fat loss,
Yeah.
but yet their body won't test against any of that stuff.
I've never seen that happen.
Oh.
Yeah.
So no loophole.
No loophole. There's no way out. I'm helping you. Deal with it.
So it's not like at sometimes there might be something else going on that needs to be addressed first before you can even talk about that?
That comes up a bunch. I've had people that certain things on their hair analysis are so far out of whack that I go, I know you're here for weight loss. We have to address this first.
Oh.
Otherwise, you're going to get more frustrated than you can imagine with me in the process.
It's a comprehensive deal. I mean, if you want your body to lose weight, your body has to work well.
Yeah. And another way to say that is a well-nourished body doesn't have trouble being lean. Good questions on lungs before we move on to our purple friend, the liver. Okay. So how do we get rid of what the fat cells were holding? Now, this is beyond the fat. The actual fat in the fat cells leaves via the breath. Now we're going to talk about toxins.
If you breathe faster, you'll get rid of it.
Breathe faster. I'm on this new weight loss program.
When you're running, you take
Yeah.
up running.
That's pretty good. That's pretty
You
good.
never have. You've been consistent about that.
Yeah, you just need the right motivation. We need like a bear or a lion or
I don't
something.
know if I'd run very far.
Pick up the air exchange, right?
Right? It would be a short-term benefit. That's all. When our fat cells open up, they let go of more than just fat. Many nutrients and toxins get stored in fat cells. The body has to decide what stays and what goes. The liver is responsible for that gatekeeping. A healthy liver will keep nutrients and send toxins to the bowel for removal. So this is kind of cool. Think about this. The actual fat in the cell is leaving via these organs. The toxins and the nutrients in the cell are being processed by a completely separate organ. That's pretty clever if you ask me. We are spreading out the workload. everything in a fat cell doesn't go down the same assembly line. It gets diversified, which is, in my opinion, beautiful because it allows us to get more work done because all the work isn't happening in one spot. So liver nourishment. The first one is Livoplex. I think everybody in this room has been on Livoplex before. This 6-in-1 formula supports liver function by combining hundreds of nutrients from whole food ingredients. It's used clinically for a diverse list of reasons, including supporting fat loss. When fat cells open up, we want to remove toxins and provide nutrients to replace them. The other thing we have to keep in mind.
So if I hear it right, the Livoplex makes our bodies more efficient in utilizing what we eat.
It does, yeah. It does that too, yeah. All right, so here's another cell of fat, and we're trying to get it to shrink down to a smaller size. Inside of it, we have that good stuff. I'm going to put up vitamin A again. I'm going to put up calcium again. Separate from that, we also have actual fat inside of the fat cell. And then separate from that, we will have some degree of toxin. Okay? Now the toxin, we're going to send over to the liver. With Livoplex, when those toxins are leaving the fat cells, they're going out to the liver, and Livoplex is going to help the liver deal with the toxin. That makes sense? It is also going to provide more of these nutrients. So if this fat cell isn't ready to shrink and just wanted to get rid of the toxin, we can put more good in there. More vitamin A, more calcium, more nutrient. And that means there is not room for new toxins to show up and take residence inside of this cell.
So you're putting the nutrients into the fat cell, not the liver.
Correct. Some of the nutrients from Livoplex will go into a fat cell that's not ready to shrink as a placeholder so toxin doesn't go into that cell. So Livoplex helps with fat loss, but also protects you from toxicity in fat cells.
So you can only shrink the fat cell. You can't get rid of the fat
Right.
cell.
Yeah.
Are you born with a certain amount of fat cells?
Yep. But then if you, depending on what you do, you can grow them. You just can't kill them. There's a theoretical process called.
You can grow them, but you can't multiply.
That's the same thing, right?
She's not talking about physically growing the fat cells that you're born with. He's talking about adding more fat cells
Throughout a lifespan.
throughout a lifespan that you can't get rid of. You can only shrink. So I have a question, maybe it's related or not, and it applies to both human and dogs, but I was thinking about this with the dog the other day. Like, we feed Oreo good quality dog food.
Yeah.
But yet, he has a lot of bowel movements now. Puppies do.
Not anymore.
But it's like, well, no, but when he does, it's like, so the question always comes up, and the same thing for humans, is like, well, if you're eating good quality stuff and you're eating well, shouldn't you have less bowel movements? Would there be less bad stuff to get rid of, or is that not necessarily true?
It's a really good question. And it reminds me of the cartoon The Jetsons. You remember The Jetsons?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah. George Jetson, Elroy, like the whole family? Okay. Do you remember that George Jetson, the father, took a pill for breakfast?
Right,
Right? That was, I think it was in the opening sequence of the cartoon even.
Wait, that's what we do.
Well, at least it's not that big. Right.
Not that big.
So when we're eating food, there's no way, like in the Jetsons, to know exactly what nutrients we need from our foods any given day.
Right.
In the Jetsons, the idea was they had figured out that you could analyze the body acutely for a day and pop this pill that was custom designed for that day. All right, if you want me to come over to your house and muscle test you before every single meal and snack, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Right. I'll do it.
Yeah.
It's just like you're going to have to sell one of your cars, probably. So when we're eating food, some of that food is not getting put to use because our body didn't need it.
Okay.
That's part of what's in the bowels. Okay. Separate from that, a human body in its adult form, pretty much regardless of size, is about 40 trillion cells. And all day, those cells are achieving tasks, producing waste. Some of them are dying off. And those things are also part of what is in the bowel movement.
Okay, so it's not necessarily related to how the quality and the healthiness of the food that you're putting in.
Right.
Those things are going to be operating aside from that.
Yeah, there's so many factors involved.
Right. Okay.
A lot of things going on at once.
Because you would think, like, logic would say, well, if I'm putting in really good quality stuff and I'm using it, there would be less waste material, but there's other factors at play.
Yeah.
Other than what
Here's the way I'll put it. Bone broth from a grass-fed cow is really nourishing food. If my bone cells are old and dying off and I drink bone broth, that bone broth is going to turn into bone, but those old bone cells are going to go to my bowel. So what's in the bowel is still old, dead material. The thing I ate is now active in my body for the next 8 years till that bone resets again.
So a lot of that you can be cleaning out stuff.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So that old cell is considered a toxin?
If it sits around too long. If it sits around too long, an old dead cell can turn toxic. Yep.
So I get a lot of people my age, there's a big concern with bone density.
Yeah.
So there's two questions. One, the solution seems to be more exercise because that increases bone density.
Yeah, it's called Wolff's Law. The more you stress a bone, the stronger it gets.
Okay. And
Regular resistance training does that.
Okay. Yeah. And then if you do have a bone density problem, bone broth would be a good thing, but especially if you couple it with exercise.
Correct.
If you want to do it while you're watching TV, it's kind of iffy.
Bone broth's effect in your body after you take it is about 72 hours. So even if you're sitting watching TV while you're drinking it.
As an alternative exercise, you watch TV.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's not advised. Yeah. Less TV, more movement.
Instead of drinking coffee, you drink your bone.
No, we're going to take this metabolic stuff and we're going to drink bone broth and
I like that.
Is there a
metabolic
more preferred amount
activator.
of bone broth?
You can drink bone broth and
Oh.
do exercise.
I like that question a lot. When it comes to the amount of bone broth, what's more important is consistency with bone broth. So drinking it 4 or 5 times a week in as little as 3 or 4 ounces is more powerful than drinking 20 ounces 1 day a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, I like to go to Kettle Range for my bone broth. I like to buy one of their containers of it, and my goal is to drink that by week's end. I just do a little bit of it each day. Sometimes I buy them 2 at a time if I know my schedule won't allow me to get up there to grab another container of it. All right, Spanish black radish. I have a pyramid of it in the lobby. I have a pyramid of it in my office. There's a pyramid of it over here and up here. There's one behind Kathy. Did you know this would be on the list? I find a way to talk about Spanish black radish in every workshop and actually most conversations I have. Our livers have 6 different pathways to remove toxins. Spanish black radish supports a pathway called sulfation, as in sulfur. This pathway is capable of dealing with large amounts of toxins in a small period of time. So if you flip the page, what I wrote next was, when a person is breathing right and supporting their thyroid, it's likely that many fat cells will open up in a short period of time. And Spanish black radish helps the body deal with that. And all my lovely people on Zoom, I just got the 5-minute warning on Zoom. So I'm sorry, you're going to get booted soon, but I'm filming this. It'll be posted on YouTube. We'll make sure you get the link. Okay, cool.
It's a side issue. I'm curious. Alcohol affects the liver because basically it overworks the liver. It overwhelms it. Is that?
I wouldn't use the word overwhelm. That would be a quantity issue with alcohol.
It usually is.
No argument. The way that I would put it is alcohol, when it goes into the bloodstream, into the liver, gets shuffled up in line. It doesn't have to wait in line to get processed. It cuts to the front of the line. And the problem with that is the liver has about 4 dozen different jobs. So alcohol is cutting in front of hormone balancing, optimal digestion, blood cleaning, all of that stuff.
Okay, but what cirrhosis does, it enlarges the
Right.
Until it's no longer able to really function.
Right.
So what does it do to increase the liver?
What does Spanish black radish?
No, alcohol. How does it cause the liver to enlarge?
Oh, to get bigger. Okay, so alcohol is very inflammatory to the liver. If you want to think about liver in a different context than an organ, have you ever been through the drive-through at a bank? And you know how they have like 3 or 4 lanes? Imagine a bank that had 100,000 lanes. Okay.
Think of a Buc-ee's gas station.
There's just a lot of pumps. Okay. Yeah. With all those different lanes, the issue with the liver is you could shut down 80,000 lanes and still get a lot of cars through that bank, right? You could shut down 90,000 lanes and still get a lot of cars through that bank. If you shut down enough of those lanes, you would have a backup, and that causes inflammation. So when that happens in the liver and we get a backup of toxicity, the liver gets inflamed, and that's what causes it to get larger.
So basically you ingest more than the liver can process.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, for cirrhosis, that's a long-term process.
Right.
Because
Right.
when
And
you're
if you do it consistently over a long period of time, you're maintaining a high level of inflammation
in the liver.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like those drive-through lanes were broken. We were trying to repair them. If we keep doing too much alcohol, we never get a chance to repair the lane. The lane never reopens, and we just get less. Yep. Because it would seem that way. If you were used to 100,000 drive-through lanes, and all of a sudden there's only 5,000, you're going to expect a backup. And the same thing in the liver. Yeah. Good. So that sulfation pathway. So you're breathing the right way and your lungs work, and you're taking thyroid nourishment, so these fat cells are breaking down. Stuff's leaving them, the fat's going out via the breath. That's going to cause a lot of work for your liver. Your liver already has other jobs. Spanish black radish is like a repair crew for those drive-through bank lanes. As something gets a little bit off, they pounce on it. It's like the race car pit crew.
Yep.
Right? The tire
Right.
gets a little
Yep.
bald and they replace the tire, or the engine's hot and they do whatever to cool it down. You know, Spanish black radish is like that for your liver. That's why I think we just checked how many clients we have, and then I did a cross search to see how many of them are on Spanish black radish, and there are only 4 clients that I have that are not on a supplement that contains Spanish black radish. That's how much I use it. I use it with hundreds and hundreds of people. Yeah. Next one is choline. When toxins are released from fat cells, they often need to be bound to keep them from damaging the intestines. Choline is a B vitamin that supports bile production and flow, and bile is a powerful binder. Toxins can slow our metabolism and irritate our intestines, which makes our midsection appear larger. So choline, really good for as the toxins leave to keep them from messing with some other part of your body. Choline is also something I use with a lot of people who have mood issues, whether low mood or high mood, anxiety type stuff, because it's brain food. It's not trying to turn your brain up or turn your brain down. It's supporting the way your brain functions. It's also really good for binding toxins as they leave fat cells.
So how is that different than Mintran? Is that more for the nervous system? Mintran and Minchex in it?
Yeah, Mintran and Minchex are more specific to the nervous system.
Okay, versus the choline.
Yeah, very good. And the choline is more specific to the part of the nervous system, the brain. Mintran and Minchex have action in the brain also, and then the rest of the nervous system as well. And last but not least, supplement-wise, is Livco. This herbal formula supports bile production and flow, and provides nutrients that the liver uses to repair damage or oxidation. I refer to it as an alarm clock for the liver. So when people are dealing with fat loss difficulties, and they have a liver that is asleep, we'll wake it up with this. These people are often opening fat cells, but not removing the toxins stored within them, leading to creation of new fat cells. So there is something that I've seen happen with clients where they get the fat in the cell to exit, but they do not get toxicities to leave. And that limits the potential for the fat cell to shrink because there is still physical material other than fat inside of it. The other thing is, this is something I've personally found promotes cellulitis. So that dimpled appearance in the skin, because those fat cells aren't squishy and full of fat like most fat cells. They're full of toxic things, and toxic things have an abnormal shape, a non-human shape. They aren't circular like our cells usually are. They can be jagged, they can stack on themselves, they can do weird stuff. That makes sense? So Livco, when I'm working with clients and we determine that their liver is basically like not up to snuff, is not like really with it, I'll use Livco like an alarm clock to wake it up and get it kicked into gear and deal with some of the damage the liver has likely dealt with. Questions on the liver?
So how does the gallbladder going to play into that?
Yeah, gallbladder is the liver's best
Or
friend.
lack of?
Yeah, that's the next part, right? Did I use right over here yet? No, good. All right, so our gallbladder is our liver's best friend. It is the Robin to our liver's Batman. Bonnie and Clyde, whatever duo you want to think of. The liver is where we actually make the bile, and then the gallbladder is where we store that bile. So as soon as our taste buds tell us there's something fatty that we're eating, that bile can get released into the digestive tract to help break down the fat. Okay? That bile is a really powerful binder of toxins. So when we have a gallbladder that's working well, as soon as we let toxins out of a cell, bile comes out, grabs those toxins, and now they can't hurt us. They're going to go to our toilet in a form that's not going to hurt us. A lack of a gallbladder, the liver still makes the bile, but it doesn't have a reserve of it to kick out in a moment's notice. So it's often just a step behind what's going on. So without a gallbladder, the liver will still bind some toxins, but not nearly as effectively.
Without some help.
Right, that's where the help comes in.
That's the Livco?
Livco's good for that. I like choline a lot for that also. I think cholesterol is really important also. Those are all standard process supplements. Yeah, that's really important. With a lack of a gallbladder, cholesterol by standard process is really important. At some point in the client's case, it's going to come up.
So choline is more for someone that has the gallbladder? Or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, yeah. Good.
Her without the gallbladder, the cholesterol is what's helping.
Well, I've been
Big time.
told, I don't know if that's the situation. Why you changed me? My body probably said, I don't want you anymore.
Right, that's what bodies do. I like this now, I want this later, right? My supplement program in winter looks almost nothing like my summer supplement program. And I think it's because my body is very aware of what's happening seasonally. Because regardless of time of year, I spend approximately the same amount of time outside.
But you eat the same thing.
No, I don't. Yeah, I definitely get real different cravings for food.
Yeah.
All winter long, all I can think about is eating lamb. Like all winter long, I want lamb. I'm not totally sure why.
Really?
All summer long, I want fish and chicken and turkey. And lamb, I'm like, maybe I'll have 1 or 2 gyros. But that's like for the whole, 4 months. But if you're like, hey, Drew, you want chicken tacos tonight? I'll say that 5 nights a week. I'll be like, yep. No. Not just because they're tacos. All right, there's a little bonus. I just want to make sure I say this. I said it in the bloating workshop. I want to say it in every workshop I can. Rest and digest during and after meals. Nothing bloats the digestive tract quite like eating in a rush or on the go or right before activity. So as much as you can, be in a calm, happy place when you're eating, and then sit back and relax. Even just 10 or 15 minutes after a meal makes a world of difference for helping all the things that sit inside here actually break apart the food without getting bothered and appearing larger because of it.
So don't take your short walk right after you eat. Wait 10, 15 minutes.
If it's a real slow, low-key walk, and if you're not talking about
I don't run.
and if you're not talking about finances or politics or that stuff, that's okay.
Just enjoying the
Yep, just like breathing and being like, oh look, a daffodil, like that kind of mode, then we're good. Yeah.
usually, I pack my lunch, and so then usually, like, during the day, I pull into a park or whatever.
Yeah.
And I sit and take a half an hour to like eat my lunch and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So yesterday it was like, okay, I had to do a display in the morning, and it was like, I know this is going to take 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to come home and we're going to do some yard stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have enough time to, like, after I got done with this, because I ran behind, to like sit and eat my lunch. So I'm like, okay, I'm leaving Mequon. I'm going to eat my lunch on the way home.
Yeah.
And then I got home, and then I changed, and I started changing.
And got to work.
It's like I went from
And then your
eating
stomach-
on the go
and then
to
your stomach was
activity.
bothering you?
Well, it wasn't bothering me, but that's a perfect example of what I did.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I can't promise you that it went poorly for your digestive tract, but you did set it up for that. Like you did. Good. That's what I had prepared for this morning. Are there other questions? Yeah.
This is, even better is not to create new fat cells.
Preferably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the damage is done, but anyway. That has to do with metabolism, doesn't it?
That's part of it. So there's so I like this question a lot. Metabolism is once your body has fuel, how quickly it burns that fuel. The creation of fat cells can happen because of a slow metabolism, right? Fuel is stockpiling in the body. It can also happen because of a sudden influx in toxicity. Because the body says, I don't want toxins just floating around. Quick, make a fat cell. We can lock it up inside the fat cell. So I've seen people who go from a job where it was a clean environment to a dirty environment, a toxic one. And I don't mean because the coworkers were jerks. I mean, there's actually physical toxins in the environment. And they start to gain body fat. And I have that conversation with them. Part of the reason you're gaining body fat is because you're in an environment where your body feels the need to create new fat cells to protect you.
Okay, but it's tied into metabolism. It's tied into ATP.
Okay, so ATP is energy. And for our metabolism to have an effect on us requires ATP.
Okay, first of all, what's the A stand for?
Adenosine.
Say again, please.
Adenosine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I've heard that described as our cells' chemical or energy burning. It's where material gets transferred into energy.
Okay, yeah.
So if you supported ATP,
Mhm.
your body would be more efficient.
Ooh, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's enough toxicity in a cell, even if that cell has perfect levels of ATP, the toxins can interfere with the programming or the directions of that cell, and it would not be efficient. It would be ready for efficiency, but bad directions.
Okay. So what a person would do is eliminate as many toxins as possible.
Yeah.
Or, like if you're working in a chemical factory.
Yeah, or you do asphalt for a living.
First thing you do is lessen the effect of the toxins.
Yeah, wear a mask, wear goggles,
Okay.
right? Lessen the intake.
But there's also things you can take to make your body.
Spanish black radish, choline, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do things to energize the ATP.
Yeah. So sometimes I work with clients and they come in and they say, I want more energy. And they're actually so toxic that we have to detoxify their body before I can give them the nutrients I know will energize them. Because otherwise they're spending money on energizing nutrients and not really feeling the effect and kind of getting mad at me because they're spending $150 a month and not getting what they want. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool, good question. Other questions bubbling up? Great. I really appreciate all of you being here today. I would thank the people on Zoom also, but the free version of Zoom, yeah, 40 minutes.
Yeah, 40
You
minutes.
can thank them on your video.
Yeah.
So that they watch it.
We get a few minutes to stand up now, don't we?
Yeah, I'm going to do my bit now.
Okay. Thank
It's inspired by George Carlin, so it's pretty foul, so I have to turn off
Oh,
the
is
video
it?
first.
you. It's also pretty funny.
I think so.
Carlin and
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy.
And Eddie Murphy. Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell those jokes. I just won't leave video evidence of me telling those jokes.
Right.